Hello, my dear students. I hope you all are doing great. And I hope you all are also staying home and staying safe. We are all aware that our second wave of corona has hit and it is worse than the first one. So please be very, very careful for your health and your family's health. So, well, now today's lecture that we have is for our financial reporting new syllabus. Two major amendments which have happened. One is Ind AS 116, that is my leases related, COVID-19 related some, adjustment, or rather I'll say amendment has come. And second, we have got in Ind AS 102, that is our business combinations relating to business. The definition of business has got changed. So only two major amendments are there. Plus one more important thing we have is that our institute has issued our new module, that is for May 21 exam and onwards. So FR new syllabus, there is a new module which has come, and yes, there are a few additional questions. If I talk about additional questions, then the type of questions, we don't have like a lot of new type of questions. A few new type of questions and some complete additions, okay? As in, they're just more sums of the same type. So what I have done is I have now made one book number 5 of FR. Okay. So this book number 5 of FR, which is going to be there, this book, from now onwards, whoever is going to take the FR classes, they will be getting 5 books. But the students who already have taken, okay, I have already sent a maximum, all of them, we have sent the soft copy of this book number 5. You can take a printout and you can study from this. And if you want the hard copy of the book, okay, so then you can, contact an office, we'll tell you the procedure. Acha, what is this book 5 having? That is one thing I need to clarify here. So remember, our 4 books cover everything in detail, everything we have done. But because Institute new module has come, plus RTP May 21 also, and all these things have come, I have included these questions in chapter wise form and in test form in book number 5. Okay. So this book 5 consists of mainly some additional questions for practice with solutions. We have got test papers, again chapter wise test papers with solutions, okay, and the amendments like this particular part, okay, this and some other small amendments and small additions I have made. Those video lectures also will be available. You can contact an office for how it will be done. So all that is clear, I hope, with the the new module which has come up. So now let me take you to the main amendments which are there. So these are amendments. These are some major changes, whereas all the other things I was talking about are just a few additions. Okay. So now let's talk about 116. We all know 116 deals with leases. We have very detailed and very deeply covered it. Okay, very properly we have done that. But now what is the amendment and why did it come? So well, as our entire world has been hit by the pandemic, Corona, okay, so that is a big pain right now for everyone. But along with affecting the whole world, they have also affected some of our standards. Like how it has happened. So because now most of the offices were under lockdown, so many big businesses have, had actually, they were under lockdown or they had a stop business, or, it is going on, off like this. So now those who have taken, assets on lease, properties on lease, they are obviously asking the landlord, or they are asking the, if it's another asset, then they're asking the owner of the asset, basically the lessor, that please could you just waive off our lease payments, waive it off at least for some time, for a few months you can waive it, or give us discount, we'll pay 40%, 50%, something like that, right? So there are some changes which are occurring and concessions are being given in this, and this is extremely common, not just in our country, it is everywhere in the world. So this amendment came mainly direct effect of COVID-19. First thing, this amendment has come in the IFRS, so obviously when it comes in IFRS, they have to also take it here. So this is affecting the whole world, remember. And whenever there are any rent concessions, now let's understand what the amendment, it's a very simple one, not difficult at all. But rent concessions, when they are giving, who is giving? Lessor is giving rent concession to the lessee. So basically, and the concessions are because of COVID-19 pandemic. That is very clear. Then in that case, we are talking in the books of the lessee. First understand this, okay? We are talking in the books of the lessee. So lessor, what he has done? He has given concession to the lessee for lease rental, okay? then in that case, the lessee, how is he going to show these concessions? Normally, whenever we have concessions or any changes in the lease, we treat it like a lease modification, correct? And lease modification is a complicated process. The way it is accounted, we have done sums on that also. So it is kind of complicated. So now what the standard said, already people are irritated with COVID-19. Plus, businesses are on a problem. And on top of it, we tell them, okay, lease concession you get, come on, do whole lease modification thing. So then the standard said, no, we have given you a choice. A simple choice that you can, because due to COVID-19, if you're getting any rent concessions, then you don't need to treat it as a lease modification. Because lease modification means a lot of extra work. So we are saying that we are giving you a practical expedient. Practical expedient means we are giving you a simple shortcut way that you can ignore this and don't treat it like a lease modification. Rather, treat it like, a P&L item. We will just reduce the liability, lease liability, and take it in our P&L. So very simple thing. So this is just the introduction of what it is. So let me now take you further. Okay. What I'm marking is important. Other things is just normal. Okay. Not so important. So before amendment, what we know, what has happened before amendment, before this has come up. Okay. Let me tell you, these amendments have come on 24 July 20. Okay. So this is the date of the amendment which it has happened. So then now what? Pay attention. Before amendment, what was the situation, right? We had got lease modification. So whenever there is a lease modification, that means there is some change in the scope, change in the consideration, right? And then what we have to do, we have to remeasure. Lessee has to remeasure the lease liability. He has to discount the revised lease payments using a revised discount rate. Again, recalculate everything, right? So this is what was the position before amendment. Also, remember this amendment is only and only for the lessee. Get that clear? Amendment only for lessee. Because lessor's accounting is not anyways so complicated. Okay, lessee has got more headache. Anyways, coming to the point. The lessor, this amendment does not affect the lessor. They are required to continue assessing the rent concessions and modifications like how they normally do. So for them it is a lease modification, that is clear. Okay. So before amendment, this is the situation. Now in this amendment, what we are saying. So what we are saying is that, look at this. This basically paragraph 46A and 46B has been introduced. Okay. Which para? 46A and 46B. That is the main paragraph. So what does it say? So it basically says that understanding the difficulties, okay, the accounting for lease modifications is very complex, right? So understanding that situation, we have introduced a practical expedient. We have these practical expedients in other standards also, right? We have done them. So a new practical expedient has been given for lessee, only for lessee, which allows him not to account the rent concession as a lease modification. But obviously, when I'm giving you this expedient, I'm giving you some conditions. Basically, there are 4 conditions you need to fulfill. If you fulfill all the conditions, then only you can not show this as a modification. Okay, so for that you have to fulfill 4 conditions, right? So what are those 4 conditions? We have got a diagram. So I'll take you straight to the diagram. Whatever theory is given here, it is already clearly given in the diagram. Okay, so let me see. One thing let me make clear before we go to the diagram. This particular, it is an option. Okay, practical expedients are not compulsory that you have to follow. Okay, a lessee can make the election, like whether he wants to account for any change in lease payments as if it was not a lease modification. So it is not a compulsion. It is the choice of the lessee. Does he want to take the practical expedient or he does not want to take it? It is totally the choice of the lessee. Get that clear? So far 2 things we have learned. One is that this applies only and only to lessee. Second, it is an optional practical expedient. If he does not want to apply, he doesn't want to get into this, then treat it like a modification. Fine. So now what are the 4 conditions? The first and very simple, basic and obvious condition, that the rent concession shall be a direct consequence of the COVID-19 pandemic. So clearly we have to see that it is only and only due to COVID-19, no other reason. So the first thing we have to see, that rent concession, whatever rent discounts have been given, deferment of rent, deferment means you're postponing the payments or whatever has happened. Is it a direct consequence because of COVID-19? Any other reasons? You cannot apply this practical expedient. Okay. So yes, it is a direct consequence of COVID. Second condition is the revised consideration. So now after concession, the revised consideration, okay, revised lease payments or revised consideration should be either equal to or less than the original consideration. See again, we are talking about concession. So a concession would mean what? Either the amount should be lesser or it could be approximately equal. That's also fine. So if the amount is going up, which is not possible normally, because if you're giving concession, obviously you're reducing the amount. But that is my condition, ki whatever is the revised payments now, they should be less than or they can be equal to also the original consideration. That is my second condition. I hope this is clear. Third condition. So condition number 1, condition number 2, condition number 3. So now there is a period for which we are talking, right? So we know that the thing is still going on, Corona is still going on, and this came in July 20, this amendment. So they had considered that the concession, the rent concession should be given for which period? For the lease payments which are due on or before 30 June 21. Before 30 June 21. So it is kind of assuming somewhere that 30 June 21 Corona should be done with and we will start paying normal rental, something like that. But I wouldn't be surprised if this date gets extended also. Okay. But as of now, this is the date. Does the rent concession should be not for any period. It has to be up to June 21. We are talking about the lease rentals which are due up to 30th of June 21. Okay. So that is my third condition. If that is also satisfied, fourth and the last condition. So all the three conditions are very clear. But suppose now what they do as they are changing the rent concession and all, they are making some other changes to the contract, the lease contract. Okay. So it is not pure just concession. Some other changes also are being made. Then we have to see, are those terms, conditions substantive? Is there some major changes? If there are any major changes, okay, I'm not talking about 1, 2, 3, any other major changes to the contract, then in that case, you cannot apply the practical expedient and you will have to do it as a lease modification. So it is not like that people will try to manipulate this. Okay, it is due to COVID-19, they revise the consideration up to June, they do everything and then they change some other terms of the contract. So on one hand, they are maybe giving concession, other hand, some other things they are trying to change. So then we will have to see the situation and then decide. This is purely based on judgment. This is judgment based. Okay. No substantive changes to the other terms and conditions should be made. No substantive changes, and if all 1, 2, 3 are satisfied, 4 are satisfied, then I'll say practical expedient is applicable. It is applicable and hence accounting will not be done as a lease modification. Then the question is how it will be done. Okay, simply what you will do in this situation, you will reduce your lease liability account debit to P&L. It's like a concession, your liability is coming down, so straight away lease liability debit to P&L and finish it off. Simply you will be doing that. And if any of these conditions are not satisfied, any of them, then no practical expedient applicable. Please treat this like a normal lease modification. So I hope this is clear. So 4 conditions are the key. Okay. So the type of questions you get here, I've also included some questions for you, all your institute module questions. Basically, we have to check whether whether it is applicable or no, practical expedient, and then how it will be done. So we have those kind of questions. Okay. So let's go further. Now, what is the meaning of substantive changes? We just said the fourth condition, there should be no substantive changes to other terms and conditions, right? So then they have explained what is the meaning of other substantive changes. It could mean any changes to other terms and conditions in the lease contract, which are not directly relating to the COVID-19 pandemic, something else. So that's why I said, now people might try to do manipulation here. So that's why they have said. So they have given a few examples also, like there could be some negotiations which are happening around the same time, correct? Possible that you are changing the rent from fixed to variable. So right now there was a fixed rent going on. Because of the COVID-19, you have changed it to variable, correct? So because variable means depending on sales or something like that. Now because the sales and all have come down, turnover has come down, so maybe that will be a help only. So there could be changes in the terms and conditions, then we have to see. So it is not very easily understood that is this substantive or no, it is purely judgment based, okay? And is eligible for practical expedient and all, then we have to see whether the criteria is met. So I told you it's pure judgment based, okay? It is judgment based, that's it. They have given a few examples like what are the reasons that they are giving the concession. We'll have to see that, okay? Any kind of agreement which has happened between the lessor and lessee, etc. Again, this part is not so important, it's pure theory. Just remember it's judgment based, that's it. Then, what did we learn about the practical expedient? We said it is absolutely optional. It is your choice. Do you want to do it or no? And who has this? Only lessees will be given this practical expedient. Of course, this reduces the effort, subjectivity involved. It avoids the complexities of lease modification. That's why it is, a good option. And once you decide that you have to use, if the lessee wants to use the practical expedient, he will need to give certain disclosures. Now, what kind of disclosures he need to give? Okay, so the disclosures required are that yes, the practical expedient has been applied and it will apply to all the rent concessions. Okay, due to COVID and all whatever has happened. Also, what amount has been taken in the P&L. That also you have to give the details. Okay. And from which date will this be applicable? Well, this came in July 20. We said this amendment 24th July. The effective date they have given was from 1/4/20 because that was the period when actually the whole thing, Corona had started big time. Okay. So this will apply for the period beginning from 1st April 20. That is my first thing. And suppose by chance your financials were not approved, your financials of 2019 1920 are not approved yet, then you can even apply it from 1920. Okay, that is when we are talking about 24th July situation. Okay, 24th July 2020. That day we said, okay, for 2021 it will be applicable. This situation or this option will be applicable for 2021. But suppose your 1920 financials are not finalized, you can also take it from 1920. Since you're taking it from previously, okay, that means it is like a retrospective amendment. Then you will have to take the cumulative effect of all your amounts, okay. And whenever we take anything retrospectively, we apply it in the opening retained earnings, right? When they are first applied. Now this is a transition provision for like almost every standard we have seen. First time when you're applying it, you can take it, and you're doing it retrospectively, you can take it in your opening retained earnings. Okay, so this is what. So actually speaking, if you see the whole thing, honestly speaking, you just need to remember this diagram and you're sorted. Okay, so this is the main key. Are you clear? So come on, let's see our problems here. Problem number 1. Let's analyze the first question. Lessor L leases retail space to lessee Z and classifies the lease as operating lease. The lease includes payments of 10,000 per month. Due to COVID pandemic, okay, L and Z agree on a rent concession that Z will pay no rent from July to September, but will pay rent of 20,000 per month from Jan 21 to March 21. There are no other changes. How will this be accounted by the lessor? I hope you got the catch in the question. The catch in the question is, how will this be accounted by lessor? And we were all talking about the practical expedient in the books of lessee. Correct? So now this lessor L who has given this asset to lessee Z, okay? 10,000 they said 3 months don't give, but then next Jan to March you give me 10,000 extra that time. Okay? So how will he account for it? Lessor L. So there is no question of practical expedient, nothing here. Lessor L does not have a choice. He will have to show it as a lease modification only. Okay. So simply speaking, the reduction in the lease payment and the proportionate increase in Jan to March does not result in overall change. Okay. Because there is no overall change, normally it would have been a modification, but because it is not an overall change, that's why he does not need to account for it as a modification, and he can continue showing it on a straight line basis because it's operating income, operating lease, so he can continue in the same manner. Because see, 30,000 you reduce here, 30,000 you increase there. So effectively there is no major change. That's why. I hope this is clear. Simple one. Second one. Come on. Analyze the question. Again, the question is about accounting by the lessor. Okay. So now when I'm talking about that lessor M, what is happening? Pay attention. Here we are having this lease, whatever was given for a 10-year term. From 1 4 15 till 25 years, they have done it. After that, 3 months he has waived off the rent. That is the thing now. Waive off case rental payments for May, June, and July. So this is a waive off. Okay, so now in this situation, this decrease was not as per the original terms. Like in the previous question, it was one hand you have decreased it, next hand you have increased it. So there was no as such modification. But here, that's not the case. You have actually waived off 3 months interest, a lease. So M will be accounting for this modification as a new operating lease from 1/4/20. Plus you are having this lease incentive, right? That's 6 lakh rupees, which you are also spreading over. Okay. So then that also now 5 years are over. So now still 3 lakh is remaining there. So we recognize the impact of the waiver on straight line basis over the 5-year term of the new lease. So we treat it like a modification. I'm repeating when the books of the lessor here, not lessee. Okay. And also we take into account the unamortized lease incentive, which is of 3 lakh rupees, right? How 3 lakh rupees? Understand, right? We had got 6 lakh, but out of that, 5 years are over. So remaining 5 years we have here. M amortizes this on a straight line basis over 5-year term. Simple. I'm no practical expedient yet. Okay. Problem 3. Okay. Analyze. As you're reading the question, always underline the key points. Okay. So, very interesting question. So, first thing, L has given his lorries on lease, okay, and it is for 10 years life, almost the entire economic life, and therefore he has classified this as a finance lease. That is my first part. Now, what happened? From 1/1/18, he had given it for 10 years. Hmm. But now the problem has happened is that because of COVID, they have now terminated the contract on 31st December 20. That will be the last date. So June 20, they sit together, they decide, they discuss, and they say, okay, Corona problem. So we want to, like what do you say, terminate the contract. So in June now, if you see the situation, still 6 months are left for the termination, right? So lease is still going on. But now when I see the picture, the entire lease only has changed. When I originally had given it 8-year lease, it was a finance lease. But now when I see the picture, I see that now only 6 months are remaining. So the first thing now, this is not going to be a finance lease. This becomes an operating lease. Because of that, there is going to be a change in the way you're going to do your accounting. We are in the books of the lesser. Again, there is no practical expedient. Just because I see COVID-19 doesn't mean I'm into practical expedient. I am right now in the books of lesser. Okay. So understand that the modified terms, had they been effective at the inception date, this lease would have been a operating lease. Do you agree? Because then it would not be for the entire economic life of the asset. Again, risk and rewards of ownership would have not been transferred. So considering that, it would have been an operating lease. Now in June 20, what happened? In June 20, L accounts for this modification as a new operating lease. So when I say account for as a new operating lease, so you are showing some, amount receivable. Remember, you are showing this amount receivable at net investment. So what you will do? You will de-recognize the finance lease receivable. Okay. So finance lease receivable, we will de-recognize, simple words, we'll credit that. Why will we credit? Because receivable was a debit. So we'll credit that. We want to de-recognize. And debit now. Now those are all lorries which are there. Now I'll be showing those lorries in the books, right? Because now it is not finance lease. This is now an operating lease. So then I'll be showing the PP or whatever lorries account debit to finance lease receivable. So we are de-recognizing the lease receivable and we are recognizing the asset now. Okay, so that's what we'll be doing. And what will be the amount? It will be the net investment. The amount will be at the net investment in the lease immediately before modification. So whatever is the final amount just before modification till June 20, you do like a normal lease, get the amount net investment, and then that amount you make it, transfer it to PP. That is what you have to do. Okay, so these are a few couple of extra questions which COVID-19 is mentioned, but it is not amendment related. Okay, now see this. Problem 4. Retailer Q leases a store in a large retail mall. The rent payable is 1 lakh a month. Due to COVID pandemic, now what has happened due to COVID? Q agrees with the lessor to defer the rent in the months of April to June. So April to June, he is not going to pay the rent. Also then the rent for Jan 21 to March 21 will be increased by 1,10,000 per month. So what you're doing, 3 months you're not paying the rent. So 3 lakh you're not paying. But you will be paying 1,10,000 per month. 3 months later you will be paying. So 3,30,000 you will be paying. Okay. Which compensates. Now why you're paying extra? You're paying extra to adjust for the time value of money. Fine. So you're paying extra, but that is purely because you're paying late. Okay. Now whether this is eligible for the practical expedient if other conditions are met. So this, is it eligible? So for that, I need to see my 4 conditions. Are they met? Condition number 1. Has this happened because of the pandemic? Yes, it is a direct consequence due to the pandemic. Second thing what we learnt over there, whether it is relating to the, which period it relates to? 3 months, right? Before June 21. Yes, it reduces the lease payments originally due before June 21. Also, the amount has reduced. The new consideration, right? It is less than or equal to the old consideration, right? Now here there is one slight problem because here the new consideration is more. But why it is more? It is more because of time value of money. Okay. So increase in rentals has happened, but it is compensating for time value of money. So that's okay. Okay. So that is also satisfied. And yes, there are no other substantive changes to the other terms and conditions because all my 4 conditions are satisfied. Yes, retailer Q, you have a choice. You may apply the expedient if you want. Okay. Clear with this? Then. Problem 5. Come on, analyze the question. So what is happening in the question? July to December 20 rental. They are saying no need to pay now. We are deferring it. Deferring it. We are postponing it. And you need to pay it from July 21 to December 21. So understand, are my 4 conditions met? First thing, is the concession happening due to pandemic? Yes, it is happening due to pandemic. Second, is the amount which is paid equal to or less than, the new amount is equal to or less than the old original amount? Answer is yes. It is similar or less than the consideration for the lease preceding the change. Right? Third condition, does this rent relate to periods up to June 21? Yes, it is relating to the original payments on or before June 21. Please don't make a silly mistake here and say, oh, but we are paying in July 21 to December. See, when you're paying is not important. The period for which you're getting concession is important. That period is July to December. You are getting it for that. Up to June also 21, you could have received it. Okay. When you are paying is not important. I'm repeating, for which period we are talking concession is important. So that's what. And again, there are no substantive changes to the lease, terms and conditions. So yes, it meets the eligible criteria and you can, if you want, take the practical expedient. I hope this is clear. Easy? Come on. Problem number 6. Did you understand the question? So again we have this lessee who from September 20 is now getting a reduction in the rent by 50%. But for which period? For the period commencing from 1st October 20. So 1st October 20 to 30th September 21. For this period he is getting the concession. Will this be counted? No. What did we say? Our condition number 3 was that the amount due should be only up to 30th June. Okay. So this is going till 30th September and therefore it does not satisfy my condition to apply the practical experience, because the rent deferral reduces lease payments from October 20 and it will continue till September 21, which is beyond 30th June 21, therefore not permitted to apply the expedient. Okay. Now here the students might get a question that, ma'am, can we apply till June, okay, the expedient, and then July, August, September, that is going beyond June, can we not apply it there? Can we do like partial application? This question might come to your mind. So for that, the answer is you cannot do it. No. Why? See, read it properly. Come to the condition. Condition number 3. Sometimes, the word importance we don't understand till we see a practical question. See, third point. Does the rent concession affect only the lease payments due before 30th June? So clearly they are saying the concession should be only till 30th June. So if the concession is beyond 30th June 21, then this condition will not be met. So the word only is making it extremely clear that only till June 21, if it is there, the rent concession for that period, then only it will be taken. Here it is till September, so not fulfilled. In other words, you show this as a modification. Okay, do the accounting like a lease modification. 7th, analyze the question. So what is happening here? You are getting a lease concession, fine. 3 months you are getting concession, okay. But those 3 months are added to the end of the lease term at the same monthly rent, right? And you're going to be paying the rent during those additional months. So suppose your lease was, say, 20 months are remaining. So now 3 months you will not pay, but then afterwards 3 months will be added. Okay, so now you're not paying, but you will be paying it later. So still will the practical expedient be applicable? Again, we have our 4 conditions, right? First one, is it due to pandemic? Yes. First of all, it is applying the rent concession. Is it eligible for that? First we are seeing, is it the revised consideration, is it substantially the same as the original? Yes, it is, right? It is, instead of these 3 months, we'll be paying in the next whatever 3 months, okay? Secondly, it is before 30th June 21. So yes, this condition is also met. Yes, there is a change in the lease term. Now when we say there is a change in the lease term, correct? Understand. That means there are changes in other terms and conditions. So that substantive point number 4 will come in picture here. What was point number 4 saying? Substantively, are there any changes in other terms and conditions? So yes, there is a change in the terms and conditions. But what is substantive? For that you have to apply judgment. And we don't think that 3-month extension is like a big or major change. So it is not a substantive change. Okay. Also, it is a direct consequence of COVID-19. All other 3 conditions are satisfied. One is consequence of COVID-19 and 3. So total 4 conditions are met. And yes, you can apply the practical expedient. So for everything, we have got one problem which will clarify the point further. Next one. The last one, problem number 8. First, you analyze the question. So, did you understand the question? Again, question is it eligible for practical expedient? So, we are having 1 lakh, we are paying quarterly, the rent in advance. They have a on 1/1/1620, L agrees to provide Z with unconditional rent concession. Simply speaking, they are foregoing the payment of rent, forgiving the rent. So for 1/4, 1 lakh, they have simply forgiven. You don't have to pay any rent. Now the question is whether you can apply the expedient in the books of lessee. Back to my conditions. Okay. First condition. Um, let's see. Should I have given the... Okay, we'll discuss the conditions. Condition number 1, what is there? It is due to COVID. Yes, it is. Condition number 2, what is there? Does it, the amount, is it the same? No. But here the amount is directly concession. It's not the same, it is less. Okay, so it will be a discount kind of thing. Third thing, does it pertain to the period up to June 21? Yes, it is June 20 that the thing has happened. Okay. Then fourth one is no other terms and conditions have changed. So practical expedient I can apply, right? Actually, the question is directly giving you, assuming that it is a eligible. But even if they wouldn't have told us, we also would have understood they are eligible. Okay. Because we saw the 4 conditions. So they are eligible for the expedient. So now what we'll do, we'll treat this like a negative variable lease payment. So variable lease payments we know, okay, this is like a negative variable lease payment. So it's like a income that we have, okay. So income, what will we do now? The lease accounting will be as follows. Recognize this income in the P&L, right? And what will be the entry? It will be lease liability debit to your P&L straight away, okay. And yes, as far as your ROU asset is concerned, that will continue, okay. They have also given one important thing here. See, now because of the COVID, there are also chances that your ROU asset may be impaired, okay. That also we need to check. That impairment assessment is a different procedure. Assuming there are no other changes to the lease, we continue to show the retail space and the ROU asset, assuming it is not impaired, okay. Plus whatever ROU asset is there, you will depreciate it normally, continues to depreciate. So this yellow part I have marked is for the ROU asset, okay. Similarly, now your lease liability, continue to accrue interest. Now once you have reduced your lease liability, then afterwards you continue to show your interest on that, right? At 5%, whatever is there, you continue. And that's it. So basically what we have done, we have just reduced our liability. That's it. Okay. So they have effectively de-recognized the portion of the lease liability that has got extinguished by forgiveness. Okay. So just reduce it. It's like your income, straight away take it. Okay. So with this, I am done with my COVID related amendment in DS 116. Okay. So it's a simple, do the sums and those 4 conditions you have to remember. That's it. just one small thing that is there. Point number 5. Okay, so this lease liability you will be showing now at the revised amount. Okay, so after seeing whatever concession you have got, correct, that Z's lease liability represents the present value of the future lease payments, right? Which is discounted at your normal discounting rate. So you will get it at that amount, and then afterwards, like you always do, add the discount, unwinding of discount, and then minus the payments, like you always do. So this is how you will have to take care of this, and ROU asset will remain as it is, as in depreciated, like normally as it is done. So I hope this is clear now. Let's go further. Now we go to our next amendment, which is of business combinations. Okay, so this amendment is basically an amendment in the definition of business. So in DS 103 now that we have, okay, in that we know what is a business combination, right? When an acquirer is acquiring control over acquiree or the business of the acquiree, and the definition of business now has got changed. So what is the new definition we will learn? We'll have some problems relating to this new definition. Yes, I want to tell you one thing here. We have done a few problems, okay, which relate to our whether it is a business, whether they have acquired in our normal notes. All those questions will remain. These are additional things, okay. Nothing has gone out of that. This is a modification, and relating to the modification of the definition, I've given you a few extra questions here, okay. But I'm repeating those questions which you already have in your book number 3 are still valid. They have not got changed, they are still there. Okay, so now what exactly is happened? So first of all, what is business? Okay, so this we have to understand. It's pure theory, so we'll understand it one by one. Okay, so write down first business. What is business? Okay, so as we can see, the business is an integrated set of activities. What is business? Business is an integrated set of activities. What is the meaning of integrated? Integrated means together. It can go together. It is like, linked with each other. Integrated activities and assets. Correct? That is capable. That is capable. First you write down, then we'll explain one by one everything. Capable of being conducted and managed for the purpose of for the purpose of for the purpose of three things. Okay, the first one, providing goods and services, providing goods and services or goods or services to customers. Second, we have generating investment income like interest, dividend. Or thirdly, generating other income from ordinary activities. So what is business? Earlier definition was slightly a very broad definition. Now they have made it narrower. Okay, so they are saying business is a set of activities, and these activities and assets basically, okay, are integrated. Listen carefully. Okay, now when I say activities and assets, that mainly includes inputs and processes. Okay, so we are having activities and assets which are inputs and processes. Okay, now business has got three elements. Business has got three elements: inputs, processes, and output. Okay, so inputs are what now? Inputs are all those things which are required to make my output. Okay, and directly input doesn't become output. There is a process which is followed on the basis of which it becomes output. Okay, so we have three things: input, processes, and output. Okay, so now when I talk about the definition, let's see in deep what they are trying to say. Like we said, it's an integrated set. It is all together, and it is capable of being conducted, managed. So it is not that right now only it is giving me output. It may be giving me output right now, or it is capable of giving me output. Now what is output? These three things, 1, 2, 3. This is nothing but the output. The revenue as such, you're able to generate. What is revenue? It is your goods or services or investment, or other income you have, investment income. So that is the output. Okay, so we are talking about a business. We are talking about inputs and processes which combine will be able to give me output. They are already giving, it is possible, or they are capable of being giving me output. Okay, so this is the basic definition. Now this definition, how they have tried to, one by one, let us understand how they have gone deeper and deeper into this. Okay, so this is my first point. What is business? So as I told you, input process is necessary. Output may be giving right now. Very good. If not giving, maybe it is capable of being given. Then that is also possible. Okay. So now let us see what is this input, output, etc. Okay. So now, second point. Elements of business. So what we have elements of business? First we have got inputs. Inputs in the business. Then we have got processes in the business. And we have got output. So these are the basic elements of business, and this is same as what we had learned in our definition. Okay, so what are the inputs? Let's see what all things you are using in the business to do your business. Okay, so best example we have got property, plant, equipment, right? We have got some tangible assets, we have got some intangible assets, right? We have got maybe intellectual property rights. Plus we have got other resources, like we have got skilled workforce, skilled organized workforce means our team, okay, are the people who are working. Skilled organized workforce. Okay, so it could be any of these inputs which we are using. Okay, all these are the things, are the resources which I'm using to make my output. Okay, so this is what is the input. One. Second is the process. Now what is process? Write the meaning of process. Process could mean any, the method or the means of doing it, the process of doing it, or the sequence of doing things, right? Or the way it is being done, the method it is being done. Okay, so you can write down what is process. It means the system. It could mean your standard set. This is how you do it. It could mean rules. Conventions means traditions applied to input, etc. Applied to input. Are you clear? So this will be your processes. And what are you doing with this input and process? You are generating output. Okay, so output is nothing but the goods, services, and all that we were talking about, right? So that could be, example could be goods, services, etc. What exactly are you trying to generate the revenue from? That could be your output. So input, processes and output. These are my three major elements of the business. Okay. So I hope till here it is clear. So now this output, okay, normally should be there. There should be some output which is there, but it is not necessary. I told you, even if it is ready, and you know it is ready, it is in place, but we are not yet producing anything, that is also possible. So it should be there, but it is not a necessary condition. Then what is a necessary condition for business? The necessary condition for business is clearly inputs and processes. So when we are taking over, we have to see, are we taking over input and the processes? Okay. Output may not be there. So how do we decide now? So that's my next point. Okay. So let me take you now to the next point. So third thing now what we have to do is the assessment of business. Whether we have taken over, is that a business or no? So for assessment of business, the first test I apply is called concentration test. Concentration test. Not the concentration which you are supposed to be doing right now in the lecture, but concentration test is when we are trying to see that what amount we have taken over, this thing that we have taken over, is it concentrated to a particular asset? Means the amount of fair value of whatever I have given my consideration, all what I have given, is it specifically for an asset or a group of similar assets? Then it will be called that yes, I have not purchased a business, rather I have purchased an asset. Okay, so how does this work? For that we have got a small thing. Okay, first we will understand concentration test. Little bit sequence I'm changing to understand better. Okay, so the first thing we have is yes, it is an optional test. Write down that it is not compulsory. Concentration test is an optional test to decide whether what we have taken over is business or whether it is an asset acquisition. So if concentration test is met, if met, then not a business. It is an asset acquisition. And if not met, then further evaluation required. Further evaluation required. And there I will go to my step number 2. Okay, so this is my step number 1. And step number 2, basically what that is, leave 2-3 lines and then write down step number 2. It is going to be your business assessment test. Okay, so it's called business assessment test. Okay, now this will give you detailed analysis of whether we have taken a business or not. But before I go to this step number 2, which I call as business assessment test, BAT. Okay, before I go there, let me complete my concentration test. Okay, so what does concentration test say? What you have to do is, in concentration test, we have to find out, okay, see, as we already wrote, test is met if we have concentrated, we have specifically acquired majorly an asset or a group of assets, then it is going to be a asset acquisition, not a business. If not met, it will be, we have to go to the further tests. So now how do we decide and how do we meet the concentration test? Okay, so pay attention. For this you have to understand what all things you are going to take. Okay, first we'll mark it, then we will write it also. The concentration test is met. When it is met if all the fair value of the gross assets acquired is concentrated in a single identifiable asset or a group of similar assets. So majorly whatever fair value of assets has come, it is a single asset or a group of assets, similar assets. So then you're not really interested in the business, you're interested in the assets. Okay. So how do we decide that? That we will see as per the steps. Okay. So write down concentration test when it is here. We have written, given some space we have left now there. So there you write down concentration test. When it is met, when substantially the fair value of the gross assets acquired substantially the fair value of the gross assets acquired is concentrated. It is concentrated means it is in a particular single asset, in a single asset or group of similar assets. Group of similar assets. We have a simple question to get this very clear, but first we have to understand the theory. Okay, then we will apply it in the question. So now when I talk about fair value of the gross assets acquired, how do I calculate the fair value of gross assets acquired? So first what we take for this is a fair value of the consideration transferred. Okay, so fair value of consideration transferred. So whatever amount you are paying to buy that business, okay, that amount you will be taking. Plus then we are going to add the fair value of non-controlling interest. So fair value of NCI we are going to add here. Then we are going to have fair value of previously held equity or previously held interest. So suppose I'm already holding 20% in a company. Now I'm acquiring 40% more. Okay, so now total 60% I will be having control over that entity. So then that 20% which I was holding, that also have to take at the fair value. Okay, so these kind of sums we have, later on. So that's how it is, previously held interest. Then after that, what we have is our fair value of liabilities assumed. Okay, so whatever liabilities are there, whatever you have taken in the business, that also we have to take. So all these things we add. Okay, and from here we are going to minus something. Some things we don't need to take, like minus the cash and cash equivalents. Whatever you have taken over business, if they already have cash and cash equivalents, then that you will not be considering. You also will not consider deferred tax asset. Okay, minus all this. Also we have to minus one more thing, if there is any goodwill resulting from DTL. Goodwill resulting from DTL, deferred tax liability. Even while taking liabilities, it is excluding DTL. So this is like a formula. You have to see how much is the gross assets acquired. For that you have to take these things and minus the cash equivalents, deferred tax asset and all. After doing this, you will be comparing this amount with the single asset. Let's say that business has got some assets, okay, or they have got a group of similar assets. You have to see that how much is this. For example, this amount of gross assets acquired is coming, for example, it is coming 100 crores. And when I see in their, in the assets which they have, okay, single asset, they have got 95 crore, one single asset, a building, and 5 crore they have got other assets. So I'll say, are 95 crore is in a single asset in that building, correct? And that much I'm paying for this. I'm paying like say 100 crores. I'm paying for this. So in this situation, I will realize what? I will realize that the maximum amount I'm paying, 95% I'm paying towards the single asset. So actually, I'm not interested in the business. I'm not interested in that business, but I'm interested in the building. That is why we are paying that much. And this substantially we have not been given anywhere. It is like a judgment base. Okay, so judgment based. So what is this concentration test? How we do it? We do a simple sum, you will understand it faster. So in the theory, it is not very, immediately we don't understand it. But the moment we do a sum, it is clear. So this, we have got problem number 1. Come to problem 1. Concentration test. If you want, you write there problem 1. Okay. So we know exactly how it is applied. See. So we have already seen this, met, not met, how the calculation is done. I've written it and given you. That is enough. You don't need to do anything more. See the notes. Before the notes, is there anything important here? Let me check. Gross assets, we already said, excludes cash equivalents, deferred tax asset and goodwill from effect of DTL. That we already said. Okay. The fair value includes all the consideration we have already said. When we talk about assets, okay, they could be single asset or a group of similar assets. I think all these things we have done. It's okay. Too much of detail is not necessary. Otherwise, we get unnecessarily confused. Okay. Notes. It is an optional test. We already told that also. In spite of this test, you can also do the business assessment test, that BAT which I was talking about. So what are the 3 steps now? Let us see. Step number 1, you get the fair value of gross assets acquired. This formula which we wrote, na big thing, that you will take. Second, see if they have any single asset or do they have a group of similar asset. So 2 things we are going to compare. One, we are going to see the fair value of assets acquired. And second, we are going to see what kind of assets they have. Single asset they have or a group of similar assets. Okay. And if yes, that is happening, then the 2 we will compare and we will see if substantially all the value is of point A is concentrated in value in point B. So I told you 100 crore is there. Okay, 100 crore is my point number A, and point number B, they have a building of 95 crores. So indirectly what I see that 95% of what I'm paying is in the building. So that means it is an asset acquisition, building acquisition. Same example. And how to calculate fair value? This also we have already done. 1 plus 2 minus 3. Fair value of consideration, liabilities assumed minus cash and cash equivalents. This is how you do. This plus this minus this. So let's see the problem and this test will be over. Only one sum you have on this. So problem number 1. Entity A holds 20% interest in B. So already they are holding 20%. Now they buy further 50%. Okay. So they are paying how much? 300 crores for this. So my fair value of consideration is 300 crores. Do you agree? Then the assets and liabilities they have given. Building. Then they have cash and cash equivalents. Financial liabilities. DTL. Fair value of entity B is 400 crores and fair value of NCI. So first we have got fair value of consideration was 300 crores. This is in crores. Then we had fair value of NCI, non-controlling interest. They have given that also 120. Then they have also given fair value of previous interest, previously held interest, 80 crores. To this we have to add our liabilities assumed. Okay, so fair value of liabilities assumed 800, and from this what you will not take DTL. DTL is not taken. Now DTA is taken, nor DTL is taken. And from here we less our cash and cash equivalents. 200. See how much you're getting? Around 1100 you're getting. So this 1100, this is my step 1. This is the fair value of gross assets acquired. Now look at the assets which are given. Now they have given you one building here. Okay, single asset building is given. And this building is 1000 crores. Okay. So if you look at this, right, building is a single asset, and this single asset is 1000 crores. So if you have to see whether it is substantial, whether the amount that we have acquired, is it substantially concentrated in a single asset? So yes, I can clearly see 1000 crores, right? If I look at the concentration, 1000 divided by 1100. That is, see the percentage, 1000 divided by 1100, you're getting 91% of the gross assets acquired is concentrated. Concentrated in what? In single asset, that is the building. Single asset, that is basically building. Therefore, concentration test is met, and this is an asset acquisition, not your business acquisition. This is what. Okay, now what about 91%? How did I decide 91% is substantial? It's pure judgment. Normally, even 85% and above also can be considered. There's no specific rule as such. Institute has considered 90% and above to be substantial, but it is just a judgment. Okay, so here this is an asset acquisition, not a business acquisition. So with this, my problem number 1 is over and my concentration test is over. I hope this is clear. Now we come to the second test, that is the most important test. What actually we have to see. What is this? Business assessment test. Write down business assessment test. Okay. So now, when I talk about business assessment test, okay, I have to see in detail what have they acquired. As I already told you, input and processes is what we acquire, okay, and output may not be there. Okay, so write down now business assessment test. Write down and integrated, this is the main test, okay, an integrated set of activities, an integrated set of activities and assets must include minimum one input and substantive process okay. So when I talk about business, you need to have at least one input and a substantive process. Now, input could be in any form. I told you, input can be your machines, input can be in IP, your intellectual property, it could be anything, okay? Or it could be your workforce, it could be the people that are working with you. Specialized people are not everyone who's working with you, okay? And we need substantive process. So they have used the word substantive process. What is substantive process? A process enough, just having a process is not enough, okay? It should be substantive, it should be a proper process, and that process should be, along with the input, it should be able to generate output. See my words, it should be able to generate output. I am not saying it has to generate output. Output may be there, may not be there right now, but it is capable of generating it, okay? So this input plus output, these two should be capable. Input plus process should be capable to do what? To create output. That is the condition. Okay, so one input at least, you can have 10 also, that's not a problem. Minimum one input plus substantive process is what we are looking at. Now the question is, whenever you see, okay, they have acquired, the questions are going to be like this only. Have they acquired business? Have they acquired business? So you will say, okay, first I will see whether they have acquired input and process. Okay. If they have acquired input and process, then we have to go further. Otherwise, no. And now when I talk about substantive process, how do I decide? Now for this, first we'll see the theory and then we'll again come back to this point. Okay. So come here now. Business assessment. Here we said now. What is business? We have already seen. Right? We need two essential inputs, we said. Inputs, two essential elements. Inputs and processes applied to those inputs. Minimum we need an input, one input, and a substantive process which are able to create output, right? So we've already written all this. Now the question is, what do you mean by substantive process? Now this word is the key. Substantive process here. So when will a process be substantive? How do we decide that? So that depends on, whether the business that you're acquiring, that entity, has got output or not. Okay, so pay attention. If the activities and assets, pay attention. If activities and assets does not have output, on acquisition date when I took over their business, they do not have any output. Then when it will be substantive, only if two conditions are fulfilled. Okay, so this is when there is no output, and here when there is output is there. So now how do I decide whether the process is substantive? So I have to check whether they have output or they don't have output. Okay, output means they are manufacturing goods, services, anything. Okay, so now pay attention. Here, point number one, what did I say? If there is no output, they don't have anything right now. Then I need to satisfy two conditions to call it a business. Condition number one, the process is critical to develop, convert the input into output. So whatever process is there, it is extremely critical, means it is essential, it is important, it is required to convert your input into output. So when will the process be substantive? If it is essential to develop the input into output. It is necessary. Okay. And secondly, and a condition is, two conditions you have to fulfill. And the inputs which you have taken taken include an organized workforce. Organized workforce means, good level of employment. Good level means high level of management or high level of, workforce. Not like their, maybe not their security people, the housekeeping staff, not those people. Organized workforce. Maybe they're managing director, or maybe, if you're talking about a pharmaceutical company, maybe the pharmacists who are doing development, or they are doing research in some field, or we are talking about scientists who are working there, those kind of thing. Organized workforce who have the skills, knowledge, experience, right, to perform the process, right, and that both the things need to be there. So if at all we are saying that there is no output, then we need to be sure about two things: that input includes workforce to perform process and other inputs which are there. Okay, and secondly, the process that we are talking is critical to develop. If it is critical to develop that input into output, then that is it. So in simple words, if I say you don't have an output, okay, no problem. Be 100% sure you're taking a business. How? Process should be necessary. Okay. And secondly, inputs should include your workforce and other inputs which are necessary. So two things I have to check. Other inputs could include intellectual property. So this other input, now they have given this other input could include intellectual property like some brand or some, copyright, trademark, something like that. Any other economic resources, etc. Okay, so when you don't have output, these two conditions you have to fulfill. Just give me 5 minutes, then I'll show you the diagram. In short, everything will be more clear there. Okay. In the first instance, these things look a little confusing. I know that. Okay, just focus on what I'm saying. Second, now, if the activities and assets have got output on acquisition date, so output is already there along with my input processes. Output is also there in that business. Okay, then what will I say? Process will be substantive if, when the process is again critical to ability to continue producing the output, right? And it includes organized workforce to perform that process. So it is like similar condition what we just saw, that yes, you have a process and it is critical, and plus at the same time you have also included their organized workforce. Okay, and if that is not the case, then you have got or over here. Did you observe the word or? Here it was and, here it is or. See, the process is such that it is considered unique or scarce. It is a very unique process, or it cannot be replaced. That means that process is absolutely necessary. Okay, so significantly it contributes to the ability to continue producing output. So your process is extremely unique and it applies only in that given situation, and you can't easily replace this process. Okay, then also we will consider it to be substantive process. Okay, what is going on, ma'am? What is going on? Yeah, it is like this only. I can't help it. That's the way the language is. But what can help us is this diagram and what we are going to make. Okay, I think first we'll make, then we'll go to this. We were making now how to decide whether it is substantive. Write down. Point number 4. No, oh, we can continue in this point. No need to write a new point. Let's continue this only. Okay. Okay. Check whether this, under substantive process you write down. Check whether the process is substantive. Check whether the process is substantive depending on output on acquisition date. Depending on output on acquisition date. So we have two possibilities, right? We have two possibilities. That there is output on a particular day, or there is no output on particular day, on the date of acquisition. So we will check whether process is substantive. For that, what I will see? I will first see whether output is there. So if output is there, output exists. Okay. And here output does not exist. Whenever you have a sum, we have to see first whether output is there or not there. According to that, we have to take our decision. Okay. So now let us see this. Output exists. Then process is critical. Very, very important. Very, very essential. Process is critical to produce output. to produce output, and inputs acquired include organized workforce, skilled workforce. Include organized workforce. Or second, process is unique and cannot be easily replaced. Cannot be easily replaced. Write down. Don't worry, just write down. When I will do the sums, again we will see this. And secondly, if output doesn't exist, then two situations or 2 points again. The process is critical to develop or convert input into output. And so if you don't have output, we need to be double sure this is a business. Okay, so for that we have two conditions, this and this. And inputs acquired include organized workforce, and other inputs like maybe machine, IPR, etc. to convert input to output. To convert input to output. Okay, so now before I go further, I would need a sum. Seeing the sum and applying these points, we will be able to get our answer and understand this better. So come on, let us see this now. Come to problem number 2. Okay, now listen carefully. This problem we are analyzing together and how we have made the diagram according to that. Pay attention. An entity S sells its radio broadcasting asset to another entity. Okay. The set of activities and assets comprise of the broadcasting license. Okay. So we have a license. So we have this radio station. Okay. And radio station may they have sold the radio station. And what all did they sell in the radio station? They have sold the broadcasting license, the equipment, okay, and the studio. All that is there. On acquisition date, the fair value for each of the asset is considered similar. Now, what is this point? I'll explain that to you. No processes needed to broadcast the radio are sold. No processes are sold. There are no employees or assets or processes included. Yes, an entity S had stopped using the acquired activities before they are sold to entity R. So this is the situation. Now, what exactly has happened? First of all, I have to understand what have we purchased. Okay, so we have purchased license, equipment, and studio. Okay. Now, is this a business acquired or is this assets acquired? We have to think. So first of all, let me apply the concentration test. Concentration test, like whatever I am paying, am I paying for a particular asset or it is a general amount? Actually, they are saying fair value of each asset is considered similar. So suppose one is 30 lakh, the other is also around 30 lakh. So we cannot say that it is concentrated in one asset. So definitely it does not pass my concentration test. Did you understand? Okay. So first thing what we have done, we have applied the optional concentration test, and this is not a single asset because we have equipment, we have license, and we have studio. There are three different assets. Okay. Equipment is not attached to the studio, can be separated, etc. The license is an intangible asset, studio equipment are tangible, so you can't say they are similar assets. Okay. And yes, the fair value, all the assets are similar fair value. So one is 30 lakh, other is also around 30 lakh, 30 lakh. So then the fair value is not concentrated in a single asset or group of similar assets. And because of all this, we said concentration test failed. Done. Now comes the second test, my business assessment test. So I need input and I need a process. Well, you only have told me that we have only taken inputs. We have not taken any uh, processes. That was told in the sum. Okay. Plus one more thing. They have told in the last line that entity S had stopped using these assets, activities before they were sold. In simple words, they don't have any output also. Okay. And what did we just learn? We said we need input plus we need process. Your inputs I am taking, process I am not taking, and output is not there. So when output is not there, look here. When output is not there, where is it? Is not there. That means the second part. Then process is critical to develop the input into output. Did we take any process to convert? No. The inputs, did we take organized workforce, other inputs? No. We have not done any of this. So simple words, this is not a business acquisition. We will call this substantive process if you would have taken all this. But you have taken nothing. So let's see the second test now. Entity R assesses whether the acquired activities meet the minimum requirements for a business. They don't have output because S has stopped broadcasting. So we will see whether the process is substantive, but because it does not include any organized workforce, this criteria is not met, therefore this is not a business. So in other words, we have acquired three assets: studio, equipment, and license, but we have not acquired business. Did you get it? Okay. Well, problem number 3. Entity purchases another legal entity, solar cell. Solar cell carries out research and development. Okay, let's understand what the solar cell does. They do research development on projects which are involved and are currently in progress. Okay, so let us see now. Okay, they are having some projects. They are having some scientists who have the skills, knowledge, and experience. They also have got some lab equipment. They have a factory, a laboratory to perform these activities. Currently, the product is not ready to be marketed and no sales have been made, right? And all the assets are at similar fair value. Okay. So first of all, A purchases solar cell. Now the question is, does solar cell have inputs? Yes, they have research development activities. They have got scientists, they have got workforce, they have lab equipment, they have factory, they have laboratory. So basically they have the entire setup, the business is there. Correct? But the problem is solar cell has got input. Yes. Do they have processes in place which are capable of giving output? Yes, they have workforce, they have research, lab equipment, everything. So processes is there. Do they have output? No, because they have not started producing or the product is not yet ready, they are in still the research stage. So if they don't have output, then I need to apply that criteria. The same criteria which we just saw. Okay. What was the criteria? Look here. No output. Again see it. We see it multiple times, then we will get it very clear. See. Output does not exist. Right, in this sum, it does not. So secondly, is the process critical to develop? Whatever we are taking, is it critical to develop the output? Yes. Why? Because they are having the entire lab, the setup all done. And secondly, the inputs includes the workforce. Yes, it includes scientists. Does it include other inputs? Yes, lab equipment and all. So yes, both my conditions are fulfilled. Process is critical and the inputs acquired include workforce and other inputs. This is acquisition of business. Are you clear? So let us see. Okay. First, they have applied the concentration test, and the fair value of the assets acquired is not substantially concentrated in a single asset. Why? Because they have only said no, all assets are similar fair value. See last line. All the assets are having similar fair value. So they are not, one particular asset is not very valuable. So that's okay. So now we have to see whether it meets the minimum requirements to be considered a business. Right? So first of all, do we have organized workforce? Yes. Which provide you the processes needed to convert input to output? Yes, one condition is clear. And second, to see whether processes are substantive, no output is there. Right? So if no output is there, then this side of the diagram we have. So we will say that the processes are substantive because they are essential to develop, convert the input into output, and we also include the inputs, some organized workforce, other inputs we have taken like our lab equipment and all that. That's it. Therefore, we conclude that entity A has purchased a business. So what I explained and what I have highlighted, that much also you have understood, it is enough. See, I'll tell you practically, okay, it is not so difficult also to understand you're taking a business or you're taking assets. But people kind of manipulate, and therefore the standard has to be very clear and specific. Okay, what is included, what is not. Okay, so this is how it is. I hope we've got this now. So before going further, we have this diagram which Institute has given. Very good one. So whatever we learned right now, we have it in this diagram also. One we have made and one more we have. So concentrate now, okay? The first thing, the condition one is, have you acquired inputs and processes? What did we say? Input plus process is what we need. No, we have not. Then go to A. A is what? CA. A means it is an asset acquisition. If you have not taken input and processes, you took only input, you took only process. No, it is not a business takeover, it is a asset takeover. So that is one thing. Yes, I have acquired input and processes. Then whether output is there on the acquisition date. Okay, yes, I have output. You have output now. Then we have got to see whether that process is critical, right? And also the inputs acquired include workforce. Yes, that is also there. We have output and the process is also critical and inputs also we have acquired. Fair enough. Then it is go to B. That will be, it is a business. Okay. No, that is not the case. Then what kind of process you have? Is it a very unique process? And you cannot replace it easily. Yeah, it is unique. Again, yes, it is unique. Go to B. But if it is not unique, then it is an asset acquisition. I hope this is clear. Same what we have done, just presented slightly different way. Okay. You know, in case of when output is there, you need to satisfy this or this condition, this or this. Any one satisfied, it becomes a business. But when output is not there, then in that case, what happens? We have to see both conditions. Whether it is critical to develop, convert. Yes, is your process critical? Yes, it is. And the input acquired include workforce and other inputs. If both conditions are fulfilled, yes, then it is our business. Otherwise, it is your asset acquisition. Did you get it? So in the exam, go exactly according to the diagram. First, we will see what have you acquired. If it is looking like asset concentration test is done, finished, you will say it is asset acquisition. No, then you will go to this step, business assessment. In business assessment, then you will see, are the input processes both I have taken? Yeah, I have taken both. Oh, then we have to see output. According to output, we have to decide. If output is there, then this or this condition. This particular condition relates to process. Output is there, then this is also process related, this is also process related. Okay, process and input both are there in the first condition. There it is only process is unique. And this one, when you don't have output, then though we need the process to be proper, critical, and input also, which is taken over. So let's see problem number 4. Now I think we should be able to use the diagram properly. Okay. First read problem number 4. I think the answer is pretty much clear. So D has acquired a legal entity, okay, who have got rights to research and development for some project X. Now project X includes the knowledge, formula and all about project X, right? There's some contract also, but that contract does not have any fair value, zero fair value. So simply speaking, what you have acquired? Have you acquired inputs, processes? No. You have not acquired employees, other assets, processes, activities, nothing. You have just acquired your project X. Clearly, that business has got only project X. So it is as good as acquiring a project or acquiring an asset. Okay. So if we go for the concentration test, we see project X is a single identifiable asset. Right? Because the contract has got zero fair value, all the fair value of the gross assets is in project X. In simple words, you have acquired the project and not a business. Straight away answer. In the question, the last line only told you the answer. Okay. Purchase of a brand. Let's see. Entity B purchases from another entity S B purchases from S the worldwide rights to product 1 to 3, including its intellectual property. Okay, so rights, intellectual property we have purchased. In addition, B also purchases, the customer contracts, relationships, inventories, incentive programs, raw material contracts, specialized equipments, etc. to manufacture product 1 to 3, and also the processes and protocols to produce product. So the answer is very clear. You have purchased the right to produce 1 to 3, product 1 to 3. You have acquired the inputs, you have acquired the intellectual property, you have acquired the customer relationships and all these are the inputs. Equipment also you have acquired to manufacture, processes and protocols also you have acquired. So in other words, I have acquired input, I have acquired processes also. Now let me see about the output. Entity B does not acquire, they do not acquire employees and other assets or other activities. So they have acquired only what is given. But that is also a lot of things acquired. None of the assets purchased has a fair value. They have told you. None of the assets purchased has a fair value substantially equal to the fair value of the gross assets acquired. So they are only saying that not single asset there is not having too much of fair value. In simple words, this is not meeting the concentration test. Okay, the concentration test is not met because they have only told you in the last line that no, it's not substantially in one asset. Okay, fine. Now what we have to do? Now we have to see about inputs, outputs, and do they have output, input and processes? Yes, we have. Do they have got output? Are they making product 1, 2, 3? Yes, they are making. Because you have got inventories of the product, you have got machinery, protocols, everything is there. So in simple words, you are having output. Listen, you are having output. Look at the diagram again. You are having output. Now we need to satisfy any one condition. The process should be either critical to produce output, and the inputs acquired include workforce, or the process is unique and cannot be easily replaced. So I see process is critical. Yes, they have taken inputs also, but not all, right? Not the workforce and all. And secondly, can I say this process is unique? Yes, the process, the entire protocol is unique to product 1, 2, 3, isn't it? So that's why I would say yes, the condition is satisfied. Anyone you have to satisfy now. So yes, you have satisfied, and because of that, it is business acquisition. So let us see the answer. So now we have to see whether the process is substantive. Yes, they have outputs. So entity B will apply the criteria. Now see, first condition is not met, right? Acquired set of activities does not include organized workforce. But yes, the manufacturing processes contribute to the ability to continue. They are unique to product 1, 2, 3. And therefore, I determine that these substantive processes and inputs together contribute to the ability to create output. And yes, it is a business. Okay, so I would suggest you use your common sense more than these technical, 1, 2, 3. Use common sense. Is it a whole business or is it just asset? That's it. Okay. With this, my business related part is over. Now, 1 or 2 questions we have, which are a new type of question which Institute has given. So let us see that. So now, problem number 6. Company A decided to spin off. Spin off means demerge, okay, 2 of its existing businesses currently housed in 2 separate entities, okay. So company A had got 2 businesses, company B and company C, and now they are planning to spin off. They want to remove it. So what they did, they incorporate a new entity, Company D. Okay, so Company D has been formed. And who has formed it? Company A only has formed it. Now, Company D has been set up. Nominal equity means very small amount of equity, and independent directors have been appointed. D signs an agreement to buy B and C in cash if they are able to get funding. And to do that, they have offered the shares for cash. So Company D has now issued shares, and with that money of shares, they want to buy Company B and C. This is the scenario. After the transaction, after the conclusion, at the conclusion, D is now owned by 99% by new investors. Okay. So 99% of the funding is come through new investors. Okay. And then that money they have used to buy your Company B and C. And this has only got now 1% here. So in simple words, who has acquired the business? Okay. So it is Company D which has acquired the business B and C, Company B and Company C. Because 99% funding has come from outside. So this is what? It is not like a reverse acquisition or anything. No, it is a regular thing. New company was formed and now it is an independent company which is being finally which has taken over Company B and C. Okay. Company D is used to effect the acquisition of 100% of B and C by paying cash. So Company A has relinquished. Relinquished means finished or let go of its control to the new owners of Company D. Definitely D is identified acquirer because it paid cash also, and the new owners are having control over B and C. So that's what. Now your accounting acquirer and legal acquirer are, the same in this case. Okay. And one question Institute has given, a new one, where you are acquiring control by a contract, not by majority shares, not by majority voting. So let's see. Sita and Beta decide to combine together, forming a dual listing corporation. As per agreement, both the parties will have original listing, and board of DLC will be comprised of 10 members, where 6 members are of Sita and 4 members are of Beta. The fair value of Sita is 100, fair value of Beta is 80, fair value of net assets of Beta is 70. Assume non-controlling interest to be measured at fair value. You have to determine goodwill on acquisition. You know what is special about this question? You have got control by a contract. You have not got control by buying majority shares. See? Here you have 6 people who are on board. Sita Limited has got 6 members which are on board. Sita Limited has more board members. And because of that, we can say they have majority control. So this is by way of contract. So Sita will be the acquirer and Beta will be your acquiree. And since no consideration has been paid, no consideration has been transferred, right? The goodwill will need to be calculated as, first of all, let's see. What is it? How much are you paying? Nothing. 0 you have paid. Okay. And what is the non-controlling interest? The non-controlling interest is 100% here. Okay. This 80 crores na, which I am talking. This is actually the non-controlling interest. Right over there, non-controlling interest is 80 crores. So you are holding 0, but still you are having control because your board members you have appointed. Majority. Okay. So we have paid nil, but the non-controlling interest is 80. Acquirers previously held interest is 0, and their fair value of the assets is given 70 crores. So whenever you have got business combination through contract alone, you will be having here NCI as 80 and net assets at 70. So the goodwill will be 10 crores. Okay, so what will be the entry? I'm passing that. Okay, so first we are having net assets debit. $70 to NCI 80. 100% is NCI. This is a odd summa. Normally 60% is, suppose I am holding 40% is NCI. I am holding 80%, 20% is NCI. I am holding 90%, 10% is NCI. I am holding 100%, 0 is NCI. But here I am holding 0 and NCI is the 100%. That is possible when you are doing through contract. Okay. And goodwill will be your balancing figure. This is your entry. I hope you understood this. That's all then. This is clear. I hope everything is done now. Properly you have understood. So that's all then.